Welcome to Under One Roof MTL, where we demystify home ownership 1 week at a time. My name is Robin Flynn, joined as usual in studio by Martin Spalding of Fred and Martin Mortgages. Hey, Martin.
Hi, Robin.
Nice to see you. Lovely day. We've had some great weather this weekend.
It was great yesterday. It's
It
not
was
so
warm.
great today, and it's supposed to go to minus like 122 tomorrow.
But it's
What's
sunny.
the deal? Everybody was out and about yesterday. It was such a nice day.
And at least it's sunny today. I need that vitamin D. I need some sunshine. It's necessary.
Okay.
Also joined by LJ Aguinaga of LJ Realties. Hey, LJ, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. The first thing my daughter said when she woke up this morning was, "Can we go for a nice walk?" A nice walk.
A nice walk. As
Very
opposed
sweet.
to...
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, because we were outside a lot yesterday because it
All
was
right.
so nice. And she was like, oh my God, this is amazing. I don't blame her. Let's kick off this wonderful weather with a trivia question. Give away some cookies. People love free cookies from Felix and Norton. You can visit their store at the Blue Haven Shopping Center, 3705 St. John's Boulevard in DDO. The first person to text in the correct response to 514-790-0800 will get cookies from Felix and Norton delivered straight to their door. Our question this week, what does the acronym FHSA stand for?
Oh, we've mentioned it quite a few times on this
If
show.
you listen to this show,
Yeah.
you should know that.
Yeah.
FHSA. What do you think it stands for? Text us at 514-790-0800 and please include your name so we can give you a shout out on the air. Lots of stuff in the news this week. Some of it kind of grim, but we're going to stay away from the grim stuff and just focus on the real estate and the housing
Let's
things.
stick to mortgage and real estate.
Exactly. Home prices are expected to continue to increase this year, which is good news if you're planning to sell a property this year.
But not everywhere.
Not everywhere.
Not everywhere.
What was interesting, though, is 2 cities in the province of Quebec are right up there in the top 3 with expected price increases. Those cities include Quebec City and Montreal. So that's some good. And oddly enough, Regina in Saskatchewan, that's number 2
Very
for price
robust
There
market
was,
increases.
out
there was
there.
a bit of an outlier there. You go Montreal, Quebec, Regina.
Regina. You know what? Regina's actually lovely. Have you ever been?
I've been to Saskatchewan. And
Well, there's Saskatchewan, and then there's like Regina. Regina's like a town, like a real city.
yeah.
A town or a city? Because those are two very different things.
It's like going to Chateauguay, you know?
It's like... Why is everything a benchmark and get shot again?
Well, because I live there.
I know, obviously.
So these cities led the country in year-over-year growth. LJ, is this reason enough to stop trying to, as Martin always says, don't time the market, it's time in the market? Is it
Absolutely.
time to get into the market?
It's always time. If you need a home, the reality is it's always time to get into the market. And it's not to say that there can't be a downturn, there can't be a correction, obviously, but if you are waiting to time the market, you're never going to win. It's never going to pan out. Even at the worst correction we've seen in Canadian history for the last probably 40 years, we only had a 10% price correction that lasted about 6 months in Montreal. So unless you were ready to hop on, chances are you missed it because you were probably expecting it to go to 30 or 40% like it went in Toronto or in some of the other major Canadian markets. So you definitely should not be trying to time the market. If you are looking for a property, focus on really what is your main criteria, what is important to you, what are your must-haves, and when you find that property, go ahead and try and negotiate the best price for it. But ultimately, if you're ready to go and you have the right property in hand, it's the time to make the move.
Buyers or sellers market?
Statistically speaking, we're in a seller's market across the board except for the downtown condo market. That's in a buyer's market. But it really depends because even though the statistics say one thing, we are still able to negotiate most prices down. You know, we've taken 5%, 7%, 2% off the asking price. So it really is a case by case.
Because we have 2 or 3 clients right now that are now finding themselves in bidding wars. So we have this really nice couple, first-time home buyers, have a great down payment, stellar credit reports, went to see a property, made an offer, and before they knew it, there were 17 other offers on the same property.
Wow.
It turned into a giant bidding war, and we qualified them for their max capacity, and it still wasn't enough to pick up the property.
Jeez.
We've seen that a couple times. Definitely the really nice properties that are kind of turnkey, that are in good locations, that are priced right, are getting multiple offers.
Yeah.
A friend of mine right now has a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with a finished basement and an office in the basement. So technically an extra bedroom, but her boyfriend uses that as his office. They are expecting another baby, so they want a bigger house so they can have some more space. Her parents are also aging. So she's like, oh, maybe we want something intergenerational, something that has some sort of apartment for my parents so they can sell their house. She's like, do you know how hard it is to find like a 4 to 5 bedroom home with a finished basement with an office in the basement, but also is intergenerational, that is under $1.2 million, like even on the South Shore. She's like, we've looked, there's nothing. There is nothing. What would your advice be to somebody who has super, super strict criteria? Should they maybe have their kids share a room and loosen up their criteria or expand their area search?
Realistically, the problem with that search is that, first of all, there's not a ton of intergenerational homes, right?
Yeah.
That's the first part. And if you do have an intergenerational home, usually you've given up the basement to be the intergenerational portion. So there's a mismatch in the criteria that she's looking for, from what I'm hearing. What I would probably recommend is, why don't we look for a duplex? If we get a duplex on 3 floors, they can take the ground floor and basement section. They can put their parents on the second floor, depending on obviously how their needs are, if they can do stairs and whatnot. But there's going to be a lot more options that are going to fit that bill. That's going to allow them to move into this next chapter of life properly, because an intergenerational home, but with a basement available to them, I think I've seen one of those in my career.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Wow, separate entrances, separate kitchens, separate facilities, and then they come back to parking and everything else. I agree with LJ. We don't see a lot of those, but if you buy a duplex and the staircase going up and down is just the doors are unlocked, it's just it's almost like an intergenerational home, except it's a duplex, and it can be brought back to a duplex when you want to sell it.
This is why everybody should work with you guys, because you guys have the answers and alternative solutions for people, which is great. Also, I saw this article in the Globe and Mail this week that I thought was pretty interesting. So all we keep hearing is how we need more inventory. We need to build more homes. We need to build more homes. And this article argues that actually building more homes alone isn't going to fix affordability. So this ties in with another report that was out this week that the price of starter homes has significantly increased. So it's making it harder for first-time home buyers to get into the market. Specifically, this was the stat they used, so I'm going to use it here. Income levels have increased 76% since 2006. Sounds great, right? Lower end of the market homes apparently have increased 265%. So there's a bit of a gap there. What are you seeing right now? Is it harder to get into those quote unquote starter homes? Because I see this advice online, right? Just, you don't need the perfect home. You just have to get into a home. Is that still possible?
It's definitely possible, but it really depends on what concessions you're prepared to make, right? I think that everyone grew up, obviously, whatever neighborhood they grew up in has wonderful memories of it, is the ideal of moving back into that neighborhood possibly, or staying in that neighborhood, and the home that they probably grew up in is worth a lot more than what they expect or what they can afford today.
Yeah.
This is where moving outside of the island, or going a little bit further out, or going into a condo possibly, finding what it actually is that's going to work for you to get into the market in general, is the concession that might have to be made. Or maybe you are going to get a 2-bedroom home instead of a 3-bedroom home. There's different things. Maybe you won't get the garage. You might just have exterior driveway parking. So I think that with time, we've also gotten to be very accustomed to our habits and where we live and what we like. And because of that, people are finding it harder to potentially move further away and maybe go to, De Montagne or Laval or whatever it might be to get you into a more affordable home. And because of that, we're really struggling to make ends meet with the starter home versus budget.
Well, the starter home, and then there's also coming up with the down payment to get yourself into the market to be able to buy a starter home. So if you're paying high rent right now, and you're subscribed to God knows how many subscriptions, and you're just not finding a way to be able to save for a down payment, even if the down payment is only 5%. So what we're finding is there are a lot of people that qualify on income and their credit scores are very good, but they just can't piece together a down payment to buy their first homes. So a lot of people say that it comes down to affordability. Affordability is one thing, making the payments on a monthly basis, but it's getting into the game with a decent down payment, which is also a massive barrier. And there was another stat in the same article. So we looked at 2 articles this week. There was the one in the Globe and Mail, and there was one in Global News. And the other one that jumped out to me is affordability won't fix itself quickly. Even if prices stop rising today, it could take decades, up to 25 years, for affordability levels to return to where they were in the early 2000s.
Wow.
So taking the stat of 76 and 265, 76% of your income has gone up, but home prices have gone up 265%. There's the other twist in that even if everything stopped rising today, your purchasing power won't be at the same place it was 20 years ago for another 25 years. And we know that's a fallacy. It's not going to happen. So, the 2 articles combined is building more homes is just part of the problem. And you've heard me mention this a lot, is that I find that your principal resident is your best investment because of capital gains taxes. So a lot of people are actually jumping on that bandwagon. And it's a way to force you to save on a month-to-month basis by buying a home. But a lot of people are now taking the onus that a principal residence is not only a place where you live and you raise your family, but it's a great investment. So they're looking at it as an investment as opposed to putting your money in the market. So what a lot of people are doing, they're borrowing more than they can afford. And right now, interest rates are really cheap. Banks are willing to give you as much money as you want. So all these factors are driving up the prices. So it's not only can we build, if we build, we'll fix the problem. There are a lot of policies that need to be revisited.
Robin Flynn, this is Under One Roof MTL with Martin Spalding and LJ Aguinaga. We're with you until 1 p.m. The Offer Strategy Playbook. You find a house, you fall in love, you're ready to put an offer in. What can you do to make sure that, 1, your offer is accepted, 2, you don't overpay, and 3, you don't end up with a lemon, because that can happen. Right? So what are some smart strategies that help an offer, first of all, stand out without just increasing your price? Let's say the asking is $350,000. You really want that house. Do you go in hot with a $375,000 offer?
Look, it depends. There's so many variables at stake here, but let's say that we're not going to go straight on price. Let's say that we want to use every other variable that's at our disposal. First thing is being prepared, right? So making sure that you are pre-approved, that you have your pre-approval letter ready to rock and roll, and not just a pre-qualification, an actual pre-approval that shows that they have verified your credit, that they've verified your income, and that you are ready to go, as well as your down payment. I got Martin looking at me.
It's actually funny. I was listening to Robin. I've never heard a house referred to as a lemon.
Yeah, usually it's a car, right?
Exactly.
Well, you don't want to buy a house and then open up the walls and find out there's mold or things like that.
After that, you want to make sure, I would prepare a personal letter, right? You are buying somebody's most important asset who's probably been in the home for 5, 10, 15, maybe 30 years plus. I'd write them a personal letter as well to express why you're interested in the home, how much you appreciate the care that they've put into the home over the years, stuff of that nature.
Does that make a difference?
100%.
Really?
I've seen people take a $10,000 lower offer because they like these buyers more.
That happened to my sister with the first home they bought. They had a lower offer than somebody else, but they had a beautiful letter about wanting to start their family. And
well, maybe I'm a little cynical. I always thought cash is king.
The broker you're working with, how they followed up, how they've spoken to the other listing agent to make sure that they show that you were prepared, that you have everything under control, there's going to be a smooth transaction, that you're in control. So how your broker communicates with the listing side, as well as obviously the letter that we just discussed. Dates is another super important variable. The seller has always put in what dates they want to move out, when they want occupancy, and when they want to go to the notary. If you can respect those dates, sometimes they're asking for 2 weeks apart, sometimes a month, whatever it might be. If you can accommodate that, that's always a huge leverage in negotiation. After that, it's conditions. So we usually have document review and inspection. Those are the two most common ones. I always want you to inspect the home, so I wouldn't waive that. But what I do is maybe we reduce that inspection delay. Maybe you've already pre-scheduled an inspector, so you're not dragging this out for 10 additional days. Maybe you can say, hey, I can get the home inspected in the next 5 days. And then that shows again that you're serious, that you're ready to go, you're ready to move, pardon me. Document review, another super important clause whenever we're buying a property, but it depends on the property. If they've already provided all the documents, take the time to read them beforehand. If you don't have any questions, if you're satisfied by them, don't add that as an additional condition to your offer. If you don't have information, and obviously you need this information to make a very clear decision, then by all means put that condition on there. But we're trying to present the cleanest offer possible while not shooting ourselves in the foot. So I'm not looking to remove any conditions, but if we do have any information or all the information required to make the decision, then let's clear that out. So those are the variables that we can definitely push on without going into price. And if we are going to be on price and we don't want to go, let's say, significantly over, let's go maybe $1,000 over. If the price is $350, let's go $351 in case somebody else offered exactly the asking price, you know? Mm-hmm. Again, we can obviously go $5,000, $10,000, $25,000 over, but if we are really sticking to that listing price, just giving yourself a little bit of an edge to differentiate yourself against somebody who is at that same price.
Is it okay if you increase your price, but then also ask for something in return? Because that's what we did. I remember when we bought our house, specifically
light fixtures.
Light fixtures.
I want the TV. I want the TV.
No, it said the light fixtures were not included. Okay. And they were these gorgeous, like we have really high ceilings in our house. They were these gorgeous, like Edison bulb, kind of industrial looking light fixtures. I loved them. So I was like, okay, we're going to increase our offer by $10,000 because I really want this house, but I want the light fixtures. And it was accepted. I mean, at that point, I probably could have bought all those light fixtures for next to nothing, but it was on principle. I was like, I'm going to increase the offer, but I want the lights.
It's definitely okay. Again, it also comes down to what's important to the seller. When you do that visit, when you're having this communication with the listing broker after the fact, this is where we can find out what were really the biggest drivers for the sellers. And that's when you can find out, hey, like, is it okay if we include this? You know, how married or how attached are they to the light fixtures? Sometimes it's, hey, they were a gift from their grandmother. They're not going to part ways with these things. But sometimes, like, oh no, they like them, they want to take them. But if you give them more money, they're going to be happy to let them go as well. You know, they'll just buy new ones.
Can we have the dog?
Yeah. What kind of weird things do people ask for? Like,
Can I have the puppy? I want the puppy.
Light fixtures seems normal to me. Maybe, window treatments, or if there's like a carport or a tempo, something like that. Have you ever seen weird requests like, I want the couch or I want that cabinet?
We have seen people who want it fully furnished.
Wow.
You know, I love the furniture in here. It's spectacular. I want it fully furnished. I wouldn't say weird, but sometimes, there's these custom things that have put in, whether it's a TV unit, a wall unit, a setup of like a library with a TV integrated into it. Like, hey, like it's already been built. Like, I'll give you a bit more money, but let's keep it in here, But nothing crazy weird, just stuff that, hey, that works so well here. I'd love to keep it here, and go.
It's funny because I had a condo on Charlevoix and Rufus Rockhead in Point St. Charles. And I put it up for sale, and it was a doctor that was actually moving from Quebec City to Montreal. And the listing literally went up for about 2 minutes, and the phone rang. And the doctor said to me, she said, would you be willing to sell it as is? I like the way it looks as is. And I said, well, there are a couple pieces that I like to take with me. But literally, I left that apartment with my clothes and a few dishes, and that was it.
That makes moving easier. You don't have to hire movers for that.
She made it worth my while, and I was going to something much different, and I wasn't sure if the furniture was actually going to fit where I was going. So the offer was right, and she seemed like she just wanted to make her life very easy for her. So she was moving from Quebec City, coming to Montreal, found this place, and said, hey, I take it as is. And I said, sure, why not? Go.
Very, very cool. I have a question for you. I was having a conversation with my mom. Now, my mom is from here originally, lived in BC for like 15 years, and now lives in Newfoundland. And I made a comment about how, like, when you sell a house, generally you take your appliances with you, and then you buy new appliances and you go to a house. And she was like, what? No house I've ever bought hasn't come with appliances. And I said, like, oh, even when you rent an apartment, usually you have to bring your own appliances. And she was like, what? Are you crazy? But every apartment I've ever rented, I've brought my own appliances. When we bought our house, we bought our own appliances. Am I in the minority? Am I just, like, getting bad luck with these things? Or is it normal to have to get your own appliances?
So for a rental, it comes down to price point. Anything under, I'd say, nowadays it's shifted, but anything under $1,000 might not have appliances. As you get into maybe a 3-bedroom under $1,500, you might be in that same scenario. Every apartment we rent comes with appliances.
Really?
Yeah, so you're looking at over 250 units that all come furnished with appliances. We find we get a better quality of tenant. We find the people who are usually moving with their appliances have usually had issues or whatever in their previous places for whatever the reason.
Interesting.
It's also one less leak hazard when you're installing a washer dryer, and if you don't have experience doing the washer or the dishwasher, pretty probable or decent enough probability that you're going to cause a leak that then my insurance is going to have to cover that I don't want to go through. So it's one less headache on that front. And for a home, it really depends. It's really another point of negotiation, to be honest. Sometimes people just bought their appliances in the last, 2-3 years, and they absolutely love them, so they want to take them with them. But it doesn't always fit the next home. So if they don't know where they're going, they might not be prepared to take them with them because they don't know if it's going to fit or not. And
here's a piece of advice. When you're having your house inspected, inspect the appliances that are coming with the home.
Oh, yeah.
Because we bought this home, and we went in, and the appliances look great. But within 6 to 12 months, we had replaced them all. And everyone knows my appliance story. I don't need to go into it. It was a horror story because appliances today, you go into a store and they go, oh, yeah, that washer and dryer will be available in 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's a long waiting period and a lot of frustration. And also, you want to get all your appliances delivered the same day. And the way that this particular retailer had proposed to deliver the appliances, I was going to get drips and drabs over like a 4-week period. So that means I would I'd have to stay home for the washer and dryer, for the dishwasher, for the fridge, the stove, the microwave, all on different days. I said, forget it. I canceled the whole thing.
Oh, wow. John texted in at 514-790-0800. If you have any comments or questions, by the way, feel free to text in. He says, I would insist that they include all the garden tools, the snowblower, the lawnmower, and any snow removal tools like shovels.
What about the Porsche?
The Porsche. Yeah, throw in the car.
Not
Why
the porch, not? The Porsche.
If you're you're not sure if now is the right time to buy your first home, or you want to make sure you're putting in the very best possible offer, give LJ a call. 514-500-4040. He will help you make sense of it all. This is Under One Roof MTL. That is LJ, that is Martin, and I am Robin. We are with you until 1 p.m. Divorce and separation. We don't like to talk about it, but it happens. What's the average lifespan of a marriage these days? 6-7 years? That's pretty much the standard. How many marriages end in divorce? Lots of them.
No, the reason we picked this topic is because most people want to get divorced before the Christmas holidays.
Oh, okay.
And then as soon as we come out of the Christmas holidays, we start to get phone calls because they want to deal with it before Valentine's Day. So it's a weird time of year because
January's big for divorce.
Big for divorces. They want to weather through the Christmas holidays, stay with the family, and then they kind of look at each other after New Year's Eve and they go, I don't want to be with you anymore. And then the phone starts to ring because they don't want to actually be hypocrites and go through Valentine's Day and then do it after Valentine's Day. So we always see a rise in phone calls right after the Christmas holidays.
That's so funny.
And so right now we're dealing with a lot of files.
Yeah.
And we thought that it's a relevant conversation to have because as much as love is magical and it's fantastic, there has to be a practical side to it when it comes to home ownership.
Well, and it depends, I bet, if both people are on the deed and the mortgage, if only one person owns the house. I'm sure that there's lots of complicating factors.
So if we back up a little bit, we used to always say 50% of marriages end up in divorce, right? So actually the stats are not as bad, but let me just nuance that. So right now the stats that I pulled out in preparation for this topic is 4 out of 10 marriages are still expected to end in divorce based on the current trends. But worth noting, the yearly divorce rate has actually been coming down.
Interesting.
People are getting married much later in life. And now there's a new thing called gray divorces. So you used to be married for 40 years. You're both retired and you kind of look at each other and go, yeah, you know what? I got 20 years left, but I don't want to spend them with you. So there are gray divorces, and we're getting people calling us up that are in their mid to late 60s, been married for 35, 40 years. And you go, don't you want to tough the run? Don't you want to see the promised land?
They waited till the kids grew up and moved
exactly.
out, I guess.
And they realize they don't have that conversation anymore. They're sitting in front of each other, and they got nothing left to say to each other.
Yeah.
Fewer people are choosing to get married.
That's true, especially in Quebec.
And so in that stat, 4 out of 10 is common law don't show up in the divorce rate. So I think that people who are living in common law and people who are married, if you round it out, it's still at that 50% mark.
Yeah.
So what happens if you separate? So Quebec is very different from the rest of Canada. The rules depend entirely on whether you're married or in common law, and that often surprises a lot of people. So let's start with married couples. If you're married, your primary residence is part of what's called the family patrimony. That means if you divorce, the value of the home is generally divided 50-50, even if one spouse paid more for the down payment. A lot of couples assume ownership is based on contribution. Under Quebec civil law, that's often not the case. So even if one person puts down, say, $200,000 and the other puts down $20,000, it's split evenly. And it's a sticker shock a lot of the time. So what about common law? That's where Quebec is actually very unique. Common law couples, or conjoints de fait, do not have automatic property division rights. If you separate, ownership follows the title. So you mentioned title and mortgage. If you're not on title, you may have no claim, even if you've been together for years and years and years and years.
Wow. So
what should couples do before they buy? Here's the practical side. So 3 things. Be very clear how ownership is structured on the deed. Is it 50-50, 60-40, or do you have a separate deal that you have agreed upon before you purchase the house? Document who contributed what to the down payment. So when you're splitting up, you go, I put $200,000 down, you put $20,000 down, so we're going to prorate whatever is left after we sell the house. Consider an agreement that spells out the exit plan. It's kind of sad when you sort of going, you're about to buy a house and you're already talking about the exit plan, but it's to protect both parties. So you brought up mortgage.
Yeah.
So lenders don't care, right? If you're both on the mortgage, you're still responsible for the mortgage. So if anyone's on default, they can come after the two of you. So before you fall in love with the property, before you fall in love, Structure the ownership of the property properly. Quebec civil law has very specific rules. So maybe a quick conversation with a notary or a lawyer before you make that down payment, before you purchase that price, or before you call LJ and get an accepted offer on a property.
Wow, some really solid advice there. It's interesting that you mentioned it does. If you're not on the deed, you could be paying half the mortgage. You could have contributed to the down payment, and you're entitled potentially to nothing.
Yeah, make sure you're on title. Make sure you're on title.
My
So what? So you do break up. So what do you? So we came up with 4 options, or probably more. So what do you do with the property after you break up? So the cleanest way to do it is you sell the property. So you put the house up for sale, it sells, and the mortgage gets paid off. Whatever is left gets divided based on your agreement. If the sale covers the mortgage, you're both off the hook with the bank. And this is usually the simplest way when neither of you can qualify to buy it alone. Because a lot of time, it takes 2 incomes, takes the down payment, and so all of a sudden you want to keep the house, but you can't afford to keep the house because you don't qualify for it. So sometimes the easiest way is just sell it, you split the difference. One person keeps the house. So if one person wants to buy out the other, you need a separation agreement. That's what the lender's going to ask for. Okay, so what are the conditions of your separation? But here's the key. The person staying typically has to refinance the mortgage to remove the other spouse's name. So when you go to notary, it's also change on title. So that person will be not only taken off the mortgage, but they'll be taken off the title. Until this happens, you're both still legally responsible. So this works out well if one person can qualify on their own and wants stability, especially for the kids. So option 3, stay as co-owners for a while. And there's this new thing that I learned in the last couple of years. It's called nesting. So it's a rotation of one person living 1 week, the other person then has a rented apartment, and the couple lives in the apartment or in the house, so there's stability for the kids. So if you both stay on title and the mortgage temporarily, you need a written agreement about who pays what and when the house is eventually sold. The bank still sees 2 borrowers, so the payments are missed. You're still both on the hook. This option makes sense when someone needs to qualify on their own, but you're waiting for better market conditions, and or if you want to create a nest for the kids. And then finally, if you can't agree. So you can't agree, the first thing you do is you go to mediation. If that doesn't work, the lawyers get involved. If that doesn't work, finally a judge can decide what happens. But even if the court decides who stays, the bank won't remove someone from the mortgage unless it's refinanced. So if both names still are on the mortgage, you're always on the hook. So always make sure that through this negotiation, you want to make sure that you either get removed from title, you get removed from the mortgage, so that someone can, your ex-partner goes into default 7 years after you're no longer together, and the bank calls up and says, oh, by the way, your ex-partner is not paying their mortgage. You're still responsible because you're still on the mortgage. This is usually the path when there's high conflict and or there's no cooperation. So as much as you want to end your relationship amiably, sometimes,
things happen.
Exactly.
I will mention, by the way, you mentioned mediation. In Quebec, it's free for a set number of hours. If there's no children, you get 3 free hours of mediation. And if you have children, you get 5 free hours of mediation. You just have to go with a certified Quebec mediator.
But you got to go in with a little bit of, you want to go in with the objective of settling.
Yes.
And I've heard about mediation sessions where the couple are fighting over fondue pots or cutlery or whatever it may be. And it just turns into complete and utter insanity. And as opposed to it's something that is used to settle a disagreement, it just prolongs a couple that no longer wants to be in the same room together.
At a certain point, you just want to get it done, move on with your life.
Cut your losses and move on.
Yeah, so you can move on to something better. If you want to find out what your options are, maybe you're contemplating a separation or divorce, get in touch with Fred and Martin. You can go to their website at fredandmartin.com. All of their coordinates are there. You can book a meeting directly on the website. You're listening to Under One Roof MTL on CJAD 800. I'm Robin. That's LJ. That is Martin. If ever you have any questions for us, you can text us at 514-790-0800 like this person did. Hi, last week you talked about using a B lender. Wouldn't it always be better to use a conventional bank for one's mortgage as it will be significantly cheaper per month? Would you recommend a B lender to one of your clients?
Well, every situation is different, right? So B lenders are there to fill the gap. If your credit score is a little bit mangled and you're in the process of rebuilding it, if you're self-employed and you don't declare enough to qualify with a conventional lender, there's an ecosystem. So there are conventional lenders, there are B lenders, and there are private lenders. And generally, if you find yourself in a situation where you have to take a private loan, we always come with a strategy. So let's say you have to go to a private loan because of circumstances that are beyond your control. What we try to do is we do that for 1 year and we build out your file so that we can qualify you with a B lender. And then you'll spend perhaps a year with a B lender, and then you'll take that to an A lender. It all comes down to qualification. So, and we know qualification is based on income, it's based on your credit score, it's based on your debt level. So sometimes you just don't fit in the box of a conventional lender, and you have to go to a B.
And if it's the difference between getting into a house or not getting into a house.
Well, it's the difference sometimes in getting into a mortgage or not. And, you know, if your situation is a little bit mangled and the choice is sell the home or take a B lender for a year, 9 times out of 10, it costs a lot less, and it's a lot more strategic to go with a B and rebuild whatever situation you're in to take you back to an A lender. And I can tell you right now, interest rates are not that significant between a B and an A. It's probably a point and a half. There are fees that you have to pay, lender fee, broker fees. But all in all, it's much better than to, like I mentioned, either sell a house or prolong a situation that you're not addressing in the hopes that you can requalify with an A. And A are very stringent. B are a lot more flexible. There's a lot more wiggle room, and they're a lot more receptive if they see that your history of payments have been good, that you're actually taking action to address the situation that you put yourself in. And they don't want you for a long period of time. They want you for 12, 24 months, and I'll nuance that, so that you can get back to a conventional lender. And then on the flip side, if you're an independent worker and you don't want to declare more than $30,000, $40,000 a year because you don't want the income tax hit, there are some independent workers that stay with B lenders for the run of their mortgages. So they have no interest in declaring more income, so they stay with B lenders so not to take the tax hit. But it's all math. So if you want to know, just give us a call and we'll run the numbers for you between A, B, and private.
And we also recently did an extensive segment on this topic, and all of our shows are available on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify.
Good segue.
So you could go listen to the podcast and catch up on some old topics so you can hear this topic in greater depth, because we also have to get to our property of the week, which is one of my favorite parts of the show every week, because I love to picture these beautiful homes that LJ brings to us each week.
Are you looking for smart downtown living in the heart of Montreal? Welcome to 888 Rue Wellington, Unit 607, a sleek one-bedroom condo in La Cité du Multimédia. Enjoy a bright, open layout, modern finishes, in-unit washer-dryer, a heat pump, private balcony, panoramic city views, and your own garage parking spot. Steps away from grocery stores, transit, the REM, cafes, and the Lachine Canal, this is the perfect opportunity for professionals, first-time buyers, or investors. Offered at just $389,000. Call 514-540-40 to book your visit today, or stop by our open house next Saturday, March 7th from 2 to 4 p.m.
Ooh, very, very nice. Is there anything delicious that you would recommend in the area?
In the ground floor, I love going to Monopole.
Okay.
They've got awesome cookies, great cafe, good dinner options, good lunch options. Whenever I'm in the area, I go there. Or there's also Marinelli's Cafe, which is about 2 blocks away, which is another great option for lunch.
I've been meaning to ask you this. We often talk about condos, and it used to always come back to per square foot. Do people actually still look at per square foot, or they just look at the asking price, or do they actually do the math and say $1 million, 1,000 square feet, $1,000 per square foot?
I think it depends. It's now on our listings, to be honest. So on our detailed listing sheets, we're including the price per square foot. Some people are going to be very analytical and will compare. When you're doing your comparable analysis, we always look at price per square foot to look at how we're stacking up against competition. Whenever possible, we'll really compare to units in the building itself. So less per square foot if it's similar, obviously, but we'll still run the analysis to understand how we look at with just comparables and with the price per square foot analysis.
What's a bargain today? What's the average, and what's a bargain today in terms of per square foot?
It depends on the area.
Yeah, it depends also on the building, I guess.
So many variables.
We have to get to the answer to our trivia question of the week, brought to you by Felix and Norton Cookies. Our question this week was, what does FHSA stand for? If you listen to this show...
Say it again.
FHSA. I know it's a mouthful. There's so many different programs. FHSA, RRSP. You have to make sure you're staying on top of them. TFSA. But we specifically are talking about FHSA this week, which stands for First Home Savings Account. So congratulations to Ellen for correctly identifying the answer this week.
Let's add to that. If you're actually a first-time home buyer, that should be the first account that you look at. And the second account should be your RRSP, and your third account should be your TSFA.
Do you have to be 18 to open an FHSA?
Yes.
So you can't start one for your kid when they're born?
No.
And if you ever don't use it, you can always roll it into your RRSP. So
perfect. So that pretty much does it for us for this week. If ever you have a question, you can always text us during the show at 514-790-0800. We'll do our best to answer it, or we can have it featured on the show the following week. You can also email us, underoneroofmtl@gmail.com. Or get in touch with LJ, Fred, and Martin individually. LJ, where do people go to reach you?
Check out my website, ljrealties.com, or on all socials with the handle LJ Aguinaga. That's LJAGUINAGA, or LJ Realties with an IES at the end. You can also call or text me at 514-500-4040. And if you're looking to free up some of your time, contact my property management company, Plex Doctor, to take over and give you back your time. You can find us at plexdr.com or call my partner Terry at 514-709-6397.
Martin, where do people go to get in touch with you and Fred?
So we're starting to play a game called Where's Waldo, but we're calling it Where's Fred. So Fred is scheduled to come back this week. I mean, he's been in contact. He's been overseas for the last month or so, and should be back with us next Sunday for the show.
Yay.
To get in touch with Fred and I, it's very easy through our website, fredmartin.com. And on the website, our numbers are there, our email address is there, and you can book an appointment directly through the site. So fredmartin.com for all your mortgage needs.
If you missed anything, you can listen to this show in its entirety on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Our thanks to Dean and Master Control for producing the show today. For LJ, Fred, and Martin, I'm Robin. Have a wonderful day.